Welcome to the best of Cool Culture Corner, the show where we look back at the podcast Cool Culture Corner, at some of the best moments, at some of the best interviews, and apply some of those principles to today in the days of COVID 19 and unrest and possibly even recession, depending on what economist you talk to. I am Ken Bader, your host for both the best of Cool Culture Corner and Cool Culture Corner, the podcast. And I want to revisit an episode that we produced not too long ago, just a couple of months ago. Was with the Innovative Samurai. His name is Shane Fielder. Those of you who are avid listeners of Cool Culture Corner will remember it. We did a show on balance is a myth, achieve work-life harmony instead. And I want to play some sections of the video. Obviously, on the podcast, you don't get the benefit of seeing our guest, in this case, Shane. But I want to play some snippets from the interview, the video snippets, so that you could listen to some of the key points from that discussion, especially now. Here we are in August 2020. COVID-19 is still going on. We've got a lot of issues going on out there, and it's tough. Much like an article that I wrote in the middle of the last recessions, which was titled "We're All Spent." I think that's where we are now. I heard in another podcast the phrase of empathy fatigue, and maybe we're getting into that because especially, I mean, granted, if you lost your job, that is tough. Don't get me wrong. It is, and there's assistance out there, and it may or may not be enough. But for those folks that aren't furloughed, at businesses that are struggling, airlines, restaurants, other service-based businesses where maybe half the employee base has been sent home for one reason or another, and you're still standing and you have a job and you're happy about it, but a lot of times what that means is you're doing the work of one and a half people, maybe even two people. And that was the case in the last recession. I certainly saw that even after the last recession, doing more with less. And a lot of times that meant putting more onus on the employees that you did have still there. So, with that, let's listen to some of the snippets and great advice on providing more work-life harmony, not just balance, but finding some harmony from our expert, Shane Fielder, the Innovative Samurai. What is the difference between work-life balance and work-life harmony, Shane?
Yeah, it's a great distinction that I made many years ago, coaching different executive level clients and working with businesses to turn people around. And one of the things I realized early on is that you really can't turn around a business if you don't turn around the people running the business. And I know you talk about that in your book and how that transformation, the iceberg and all that kind of concept, it really works well. But people buy into this idea, like you were saying, like they've been hit over the head a number of times with, oh, you have to have, work-life balance. And it's almost like it's said in jest. Like your boss or supervisor may come up to you and say, John, you need better work-life balance. And but then he wants you to put in 10 hours of overtime on the weekend to get the report done.
Yeah.
And you're going like, how do I do all of that? And so you're left on your own. And when you're left on your own, balance means that there's a decision that has to be made. It's a competition between two sets of priorities. Like I have to keep something in balance. So one thing would rise up and get the priority and the attention. The other thing has to suffer. So I'm going to choose contribution to work, putting in the work time, rising the corporate ladder, climbing the ladder, doing all that stuff. And honey, I will just let you and the kids suffer for 3 or 4 years while I get to some point. And then you wake up and you say, now my life is out of balance and I need to get more balance. And it's just really kind of a messed up way to live.
Yeah.
So you're always in competition with one thing or another. And, one of the things is trying to separate work life from home life or personal life. That's impossible too. Your life is your life. I mean, you look at an employee versus an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and an employee has some semblance of a mindset that I start my day at the office, I end my day at the office, and the work is done to a degree. Maybe I check some emails in the evening or whatever. But then the entrepreneur, he or she wakes up in the day and it's their life. Like there is no punch in, punch out when you're a business
Right.
owner or an entrepreneur. You're thinking about your business. It's an integrated part of your life. So work-life harmony is a different definition of that, where we're saying there are going to be times in your life where you have a peak season. You have a go time. You have something you're highly engaged on, you're working on. And it could be work, it can be personal, it can be whatever. And so you need to then have a mechanism that you can assess your priorities and your values so that you can go out and accomplish all those things without sacrifice.
Here, I truly believe that when it comes to using your words, work-life harmony, that in order to have a cool culture corner, there's an expectation as to what the business is going to do and an expectation as to what the employee is going to do. Yes, I truly believe that from a business standpoint, to have a realization of health and wellness of the employee, to create an environment that allows for some balance, makes a lot of sense. But at some point, the employee needs to have an expectation of what he or she needs to do. Case in point, and then I want to hear your take on this. Many years ago, frankly, before all of the health and wellness in the workplace, it really became a thing, if you will. And it's a
Mhm.
thing that I do believe is important. I think it truly does help morale and creating a cool culture corner. So I support it. But back in the 90s, when I was managing a team, one of my direct reports came to me and informed me that she was pregnant. Which
Mm.
was which, as a side note, was a surprise because she was 35 years old and always said she didn't want kids. But anyhow, whole
Yeah.
whole nother story. But she was pregnant with twins, and she said, I congratulated her, and she said that she was looking towards what life was going to look like for her as both a mom and a professional, and asked for basically some work-life balance. Can I work from home? Can I do this and that and the other thing? And I surprised her because, frankly, I wasn't as balanced as I am now or as progressive. I surprised her with saying, you know what? I'm sure there's something that we can do. Let me talk to HR and let's see what type of balance we can create here, because I think we can do that. And sure enough, we said, okay, well, maybe you can work from home at this time. Maybe we can structure this in this particular way. And that particular employee, really pushed the envelope. It's like, well, I want to work from home 3 days a week, and I want to be able to go home early on these days because of that. And it's like, well, all right, we felt a little bit taken advantage of because, yes, we want you to have harmony. But at some point, we can do a little bit to create this harmonious environment. But at some point, you have to realize that, one, you have to create your own harmony. And two, we still have a business to run, for the love of God. You need to decide
Mhm.
whether you can make this work, or possibly there is another career or another profession that you need to go into to create your harmony. Your thoughts on my story and that experience from the 90s?
Yeah. So, I mean, the expectation isn't, I'm totally with you on the expectation. I've managed thousands of employees over my
Sure.
life, and harmony is good. Harmony can be flexible, it can be malleable, but then there's a certain level of standard. And, obviously we're on the show that talks about culture, and you always have to weigh the good of the many to the good of the one. And so I'm
Yep.
totally with you there when it's like, hey, you know what? She had a major life change. becoming a mother of twins, that's a whole new season. It's a major change. Not having one baby, but having two is massive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a time where for her to be harmonious with herself, she needs to reevaluate her expectations and what she needs. And unfortunately, my experience shows that the employee can't see that because they're going through something. It could be a divorce, babies, it could be new grandkids, it's like any kind of major life change. And sometimes that's where the employer has to take leadership beyond corporate leadership, but also friend to friend, peer to peer, personal leadership, and say, it looks like, Ken, you're going through a situation. And here's kind of what we're able to do for you.
Yeah.
And here's what's reasonable. But beyond this, you've got to figure that out. So how would you like us to help you figure that out?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need some assistance from us? Or, and now companies, I think sometimes companies scapegoat it now. We're saying, well, just call the EAP line. Well, that doesn't help. Like they really need their leader to sit down and say, look, how can we create a harmonious situation? But so I think that's one thing. And I had an experience working in a company where a lot of my employees were internationally based. So a lot of immigrants come to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get a lot of amazing talent that comes, people that are coming in, and doctors and very well-educated people that they needed a transition job for 2 or 3 years until they could get their equivalency training done. And so we employed a lot of people. Now, one of the interesting things is these people would work for years without taking vacation. But the expectation was, hey, I got to go back home to Sri Lanka or Africa or wherever. So what I'd like to do in that time is, I'll work for you for 2 years, Shane, take no vacation, but I need 8 weeks off 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And we would make that work.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it would ruffle feathers of other employees. Like, how come John gets 8 weeks off? Well, John hasn't taken a vacation in 3 years. You take 4 weeks every year. Like, do the math. And we would, because he's such a good employee, right? And sometimes there was a commercial value too, is that we knew John would probably, like, a lot of times these guys would be working 10 to 20% below market rate if I had to hire somebody else to do that. So it's like, hey, you know what? They're really contributing in a lot of ways to the organization. So let's be flexible and fit them in when they need to go home for 6 or 8 weeks. And usually when they went home, it wasn't really even a holiday. It was like, hey, mom or dad are sick, they might pass, I need to go now, and I need 6 or 8 weeks, right? So I think a lot of times this is where corporate leadership and personal leadership really comes into play, is you have to be that guy that can take that person aside and walk them through this and say, corporately, here's what I can do for you. We can call HR, we can come up with a new work from home, work sharing agreement, but that's where it ends. And from here, how can I help you figure the rest out?
Yeah.
And sometimes they have to go get a different job somewhere, and sometimes you have to make that decision with and for them. But that's harmony too, because now you're harmonizing the other 200 people that work in the office, or in the division or the branch or wherever you are. And that's the privilege of leadership. But what I think is important there is that also speaks into your culture.
Mm-hmm.
So then that says volumes to the people that are left inside the culture to say, wow, am I ever grateful I work here? Because if I'm going to ever have to go through a situation, at least I know Ken's approachable. At least I know I can walk into his office, put it on the table, and we're going to come up with something, and that something will be better than what I might get down the street.
Now a word from our sponsor, Vero. Vero offers powerful identity theft recovery solutions for you and the people you serve. Their suite of services provide complete protection from the fallout of fraud and data breaches. Plus, Vero's solutions may be used as a generator of income depending upon the nature of your business. Take VBiz, for example. The VBiz service provides full data breach recovery services for the business, ensures compliance with federal and state laws, covers all employees of the business, and provides up to 25,000 victims of business breach with recovery services. In today's world, where fraud has increased and new income opportunities are hard to find, VBiz may be just what you need. To request a free online demo, contact the producer of this show at info@btcinc.net with VBiz, VBIZ, in the subject line, and we'll get you on the fast track to learning how you can become more secure with Vero's fully managed identity recovery solutions.
So I think we have to really encourage all the leaders listening today to do things to get yourself into harmony. I know another guy that, he was telling me how he took up a hobby and he started doing shooting and competitive shooting. Never really kind of got into it, realized this was going to be a good thing for him to do. And he was of the professional opinion that you would do your work Monday to Friday and Saturday was the carryover day. So if you just weren't that productive at the office, then, you had Saturday. Well, guess what? Shooting happened on Saturdays. Yeah. He had to drive to the range, come back, and he all of a sudden realized Saturdays aren't an option anymore. So it made him more productive to get his stuff done Monday to Friday so that Saturday he could go shooting. And I call that the automatic yes and the automatic no. So for in my life, my automatic, if you don't have an automatic yes and no, then you're going to be subject to the whims of everybody. Because if someone asks you to do something and you hesitate, they'll smell that a mile away. Yeah. And they'll say, okay, you hesitated, okay, great, you're going to do it. But if you ask me, hey, Shane, can we get together on Monday night? I'll say, Ken, no. Yeah. Well, how about Wednesday night? Nope. Friday night? Nope. Those are my dojo nights. Unless it's like something monumental, like a concert coming to town or an event that I have to buy a ticket for that happens once in a lifetime, then generally, no. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I'm at the dojo. So if you want to see me on those days, it's got to be before 6 o'clock. After that, I'm in the dojo for 3 hours. Yeah. So that, by having a hobby, by being in harmony, whether it's hobbies or whether it's, I'm just going to be home with the family on Tuesday nights. I'm just going to be present for those 4 or 5 hours on a Tuesday night. And I'm going to be with my family. For some people, it's like date night, Wednesday night with the wife. Yep. Regardless of how many kids they have and what's going on, don't get in the way of this guy and this woman going for their date night. And so when you start getting into harmony, you create these blocks of protected time. And those blocks give you the fuel of life. And then that helps you be a better leader. It helps you be more productive. And then that sets the tone that your employees and people around you can follow.
So what can we learn from Shane? Well, there's tons we can learn from Shane, including martial arts, apparently. But 3 specific things that I want to really drive home. And of course, I encourage you to go back and listen to the entire episode on workplace harmony in Cool Culture Corner from earlier this year. But 3 things. One is harmony without sacrifice. I think that balance many times is like compromise, where 1 + 1 may equal 1 or 1.5 or even a half. Whereas in case of the opposite of compromise being synergy, 1 + 1 may equal 3 or 4 or 5. I think harmony can be 1 + 1 equals 3, 4, 5, or even more. To think about how can I align my life? How can I meld this? The other one, which was a large portion that I wanted to play again, was my discussion with Shane on expectations. Is that there certainly needs to be an expectation from the business on providing harmony to their employees, much like Shane said, which I really loved, is that sometimes you got to harmonize the other 200 people in the office as well as the one. But having that expectation as an employee as well as to, all right, what is it that I need and how much can I take without screwing up, frankly, that harmony. Because as an employee, you want to have harmony with those other folks over there, especially if you're going to be working in close proximity. And the other part is that leaders need to get into harmony. That if they get into harmony, then that's going to be an example to their employees on how to get into harmony. I love his story about the leader that took up shooting and then all of a sudden didn't have his Saturdays free anymore. And that was a good example because it made him more productive during the week. But go back, listen to the entire episode of Workplace Harmony on Cool Culture Corner. I'll certainly put the link in the notes here on our YouTube channel. And look to find ways for harmony. These are tough times that we're living in. Not impossible times. We certainly are and will get through them, but they're definitely tougher than usual. So look for ways to find that harmony and to provide harmony into a Cool Culture Corner at your unique business. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and take care. Now a word from our sponsor, Bader Training and Consulting. BTC is the creator of the B+C+S formula. Our clients that implement that formula increase their net income by 124% and grow their business by 17% on average. The best place to start working with Bader Training and Consulting is with our B+C+S audit. The service pinpoints issues as well as attributes of your business's unique brand, culture, and strategy. Learn more or sign up for a B+C+S audit at www.btcinc.net/BCS-audit.